He said I didn't do anything anymore, so I let silence prove exactly who I was. There were 62 people at that luncheon. Soft music, polite laughter, crystal glasses catching the afternoon light, and in the middle of it all, him, standing tall, confident, telling a story that wasn't entirely true. "This is my wife," he said, resting his hand lightly on my shoulder. "She retired early. She just enjoys life now. Just enjoys life." A few women smiled. A few men nodded. Someone even said, "Lucky you." And I smiled too. Because sometimes, the most dangerous thing you can do is smile when you've just been erased. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough to keep the moment moving. But something shifted. Not in the room, in me. Because there is a quiet kind of dismissal that doesn't sting right away. It settles later, like realizing someone rewrote your story while you were still living it. The truth? I didn't retire. I paused. There's a difference. I stepped away from a 5-year career in operations and logistics, not because I couldn't continue, but because life asked something different of me. A sick parent, a relocation, a season where someone had to hold everything together behind the scenes. And I did. Efficiently, calmly, without applause. But here's the part no one at that luncheon knew. Even after I stepped away, I never stopped solving problems. I just stopped getting credit for them. 6 months before that luncheon, he had been struggling with something. A contract. A complicated one. Too many variables. Too many moving parts. Too many things that didn't quite align. I remember the night clearly. He was sitting at the dining table, laptop open, forehead creased in that familiar way. "I don't know why this isn't working," he muttered. I didn't say anything at first. I just walked over, looked at the screen, and within minutes... Not the obvious issue. The deeper one. The structure was wrong. Everything looked fine on the surface, but underneath, the timeline logic didn't support the financial projections. It wasn't broken. It was misaligned. And misalignment is harder to catch, because it hides inside things that look correct. "Can I?" I asked. He shrugged. Sure. That was all the permission I needed. 2 hours later, I had rebuilt the sequence, adjusted the dependencies, reframed the delivery schedule, simplified the entire model so it actually made sense. Not just to him, to anyone. He looked at it, paused, then said, "That's better. Better. Not brilliant. Not impressive. Just better." And I let that be enough. Because sometimes, when you've spent years being dependable, you stop needing recognition. Or at least, you tell yourself you don't. 3 weeks later, he closed the deal, celebrated, congratulated, admired, and I stood next to him, exactly where I had always stood. Supportive, quiet, invisible. If you've ever helped build something, and watched someone else take the spotlight, comment 1. Not for validation, just to acknowledge that you've been there. The moment that changed everything didn't happen in front of everyone. It happened later, at a smaller table, with fewer people, and one very simple question. A woman across from me, elegant, sharp, observant, leaned in slightly and asked, "So what did you used to do?" Used to. As if my value had an expiration date. I smiled. "I worked in operations strategy." Her eyes lit up for a second. "Ah, you must have been very good." Must have been. Past tense again. Funny how quickly the world moves you into history when you stop announcing yourself. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not because I was upset, because I was clear. Clarity doesn't feel like anger. It feels like quiet decision. The next morning, I opened my old files. Spreadsheets, reports, frameworks I had built years ago. And then, I opened his project. Before, after, side by side. The difference wasn't subtle. It was undeniable. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't minimize it. I didn't say, "It was nothing," I said quietly to myself. That was me. I didn't confront him. There was no speech, no emotional scene, because proving something doesn't always require noise. Sometimes it requires movement. I updated my resume, not dramatically, just truthfully. I reached out to 2 former colleagues, not asking for favors, just reconnecting, and within 10 days, something happened. An offer. Small, contained, temporary, but real. The company was struggling, not failing, just stuck. They couldn't understand why their systems weren't scaling, why growth felt harder than it should. And as I reviewed their operations, I smiled, because I had seen this before, many times. It took me 8 days, 8 quiet, focused, uninterrupted days, to identify 3 core inefficiencies. Nothing flashy, just fundamental misalignments, the kind that slowly drain money, energy, and momentum. I presented my findings, clearly, calmly, without embellishment, and when I finished, no one clapped, but everyone leaned forward. That's how you know it matters. They extended my contract, then referred me to another company, and another. And suddenly, the thing I had stopped doing was building something new, without permission, without announcement, without needing anyone to introduce me correctly. He noticed. Of course he did. You've been busy, he said one evening. I have. With what? Work. He smiled. That same familiar smile, the one that carries a hint of disbelief. What kind of work? I looked at him. Steady. The kind that fixes things when they don't quite make sense. That was the first moment something shifted. Not fully, but enough. Because when someone starts to see you differently, it's usually because you've already changed. If you've ever had someone slowly realize your worth after underestimating you, comment 1. You don't need to explain it. You know the feeling. A few weeks later, he came to me again. Different problem. Same tone. Careful. Measured. I could use your perspective, he said. Not help. Perspective. Progress. I listened. Really listened. And as he spoke, I recognized the pattern immediately, because it was exactly what I had just solved for someone else. Someone who paid me, respected me, acknowledged me. So this time, I didn't just give him the answer. I gave him something else. A proposal. Clear terms. Defined scope. Professional boundaries. He read it slowly, then looked at me. You're serious? Yes. Because here's the truth. If you don't define your value, someone else will, and they will almost always define it smaller. He signed. Not out of obligation. Out of necessity. Because this time, I wasn't optional. I solved the issue. Efficiently. Precisely. Completely. And when he presented it, something was different. My name was there. Not hidden. Not implied. Visible. No one laughed. Weeks later, at another gathering, he introduced me again. This is my wife, he said. And then he paused. Which matters more than words. She's a consultant. She's been instrumental in several key projects. No jokes. No softening. Was it enough? Because recognition after dismissal isn't healing. It's adjustment. And those are not the same thing. But something had changed. Not in the room. Not even in him. In me. Because once you see yourself clearly, you can't go back to being invisible. Sometimes I think about that first luncheon. The smiles. The assumptions. The way people accepted a version of me that was incomplete. And I ask myself, did they not know? Or did I allow them not to? If you've ever had to quietly rebuild who you are, without announcing it to the world, come on. Not for applause. Just to mark the moment you chose yourself again. Because some transformations don't need attention. They just need a decision. And the courage to follow it, all the way through.